étudié différents publics, les femmes, les couples, les familles, dans différents contextes. J'ai notamment regardé les suivis de grossesse, les consultations en médecine familiale en cabinet. J'ai comparé aussi la présence d'un interprète formel versus un interprète informel en cabinet et en soutien à domicile pour en mesurer les effets, les avantages et les désavantages. C'est en faisant mes recherches en soutien à domicile que s'est réveillé mon grand intérêt pour les conditions des migrants âgés. Depuis plus de 10 ans maintenant, mes travaux vont se concentrer sur cette catégorie populationnelle pour mieux comprendre leur trajectoire du vieillissement dans le but de favoriser leur inclusion sociale tout en leur donnant accès à des services de santé, des services sociaux et des services communautaires qui sont adaptés à la diversité et qui favorisent justement leur inclusion sociale et leur participation sociale. Afin de m'inscrire dans le modèle de gestion de la diversité tel qu'il est promu au Québec, donc dans les institutions de santé et dans la grande majorité des organismes communautaires, c'est important de mentionner qu'aucune de mes recherches n'a porté sur une communauté ethnoculturelle spécifique. Je mentionnerai seulement ici que l'approche interculturelle québécoise considère qu'il est préférable de prendre en considération les particularités individuelles des aînés, comme par exemple leur lieu de naissance, leur genre, l'âge lors de la migration, leur statut migratoire, leur éducation, leur absence, présence de réseau, leur niveau d'éducation, plutôt que de se concentrer sur les caractéristiques de communautés ethnoculturelles ciblées. À Montréal, il faut savoir que plus de 40% des aînés qui vivent dans la ville, dans le Grand Montréal, ont un historique migratoire et que ces aînés proviennent de plus de 150 pays différents. Vous vous imaginez donc que ça peut être compliqué pour des intervenants, pour des professionnels de la santé, de connaître les caractéristiques culturelles de ces 150 groupes ethnoculturels. Les intervenants en santé et en services sociaux vont reconnaître les particularités de l'intervention auprès des migrants en général, sans nécessairement cibler des communautés en particulier. C'est pourquoi, puisque mes recherches portent sur l'approche interculturelle, je vais m'intéresser à tous les aînés, hommes ou femmes, qui possèdent un historique migratoire, dans le but de promouvoir une approche qui va encourager l'ouverture, la rencontre, l'échange entre des personnes qui sont issues de différentes communautés culturelles, ce qui inclut ici la population majoritaire, soit les Québécois d'origine canadienne-française. Dans une recherche qui a été menée par Michel Charpentier, qui fait partie de l'équipe de cette présente recherche, je me suis penchée sur les questions de solitude et d'isolement chez les personnes, chez les aînés migrants. Nous avons constaté plusieurs ressemblances avec les personnes âgées en général. Toutes catégories confondues, on pouvait noter la peur de vieillir, la peur de mourir seul, la peur de perdre son réseau, la peur de perdre son autonomie. Nous avons aussi constaté plusieurs ressemblances entre les personnes âgées immigrantes en général, au niveau des relations et des liens familiaux transnationaux, au niveau de leur double appartenance, au niveau des difficultés d'inclusion qui sont reliées surtout à la barrière linguistique. Nous avons aussi relevé des caractéristiques particulières qui sont effectivement reliées à l'appartenance à des communautés ethnoculturelles spécifiques, comme par exemple les croyances et les pratiques religieuses, les visions de la santé, les visions de la mort, les visions de la solitude. Notre échantillon était cependant faible et nous avons noté l'importance d'avoir des informations sur la trajectoire et le parcours migratoire des aînés, puisqu'ils ont une influence importante sur la façon de vivre sa vieillesse. J'ai donc amorcé depuis 2018 une recherche qualitative qui s'intéresse à la diversité des parcours migratoires et aux trajectoires migratoires du vieillissement chez les aînés migrants. Je suis présentement en train d'analyser les données issues de 50 entretiens que j'ai menés avec des aînés migrants, hommes et femmes d'origine culturelle diverses. Les résultats confirment que les trajectoires migratoires variées sont un facteur important qui influence les trajectoires individuelles du vieillissement, le bien vieillir, et qui ont un fort impact sur l'inclusion ou l'exclusion sociale. Merci.
Thank you, Marie-Emmanuelle. You're on very good time. So now I'm gonna give the mic to Bharati.
Thank you, Lee. So I'm just going to provide a very brief overview of what my research entails. So my work primarily looks at the resettlement of immigrants and refugees and newcomers in small or mid-sized towns and rural regions. I'm very much interested in work and health-related policies as it relates to improving the lives of individuals or community health and well-being. So to date, right from my undergrad, all my work has been really participatory, and which means that it's been done in collaboration with the local community, the stakeholders, healthcare providers, faith leaders, and other service providers, as well as policymakers and immigrants and refugees. Along with the participatory research, I'm very interested in arts-based research. And arts-based is really, there are different kinds of arts-based research, narrative inquiry, photography, poetry, music, performance, and visual arts. While I had written poetry in the past, my journey with the arts-based research in a SSHRC-funded project really started during my doctoral work. In my doctoral study, I looked at the relationship between work and health, and to my knowledge, it was the first photo-voice study that was looking at the relationship between two variables. And I wanted to understand how the work, paid work, impacts the lives of the racialized women. There's been really strong evidence that arts-based work is a powerful tool to engage underrepresented and marginalized populations, especially those whose English is their additional language. So these days, most people take photographs with phones. I have an iPhone. I really don't know how to use it, but if we recall and look at our photo albums, while photos are frozen in time, they do give us a lot of information about our past as well as memories for the future. Generally, arts-based research has been used in community development and capacity building, but health research, nursing, and others are really taking this tool. For example, I did a number of keynotes at the primary healthcare research and nursing conferences. So currently, I'm completing a 5-year study that is SSHRC and CIHR funded, and it's the first Canadian study focusing on transnational caregiving experiences of immigrants, European, racialized as well as indigenous populations. And the method that I'm using is multimodal ethnography, which means that we've asked participants to give us one item that basically represents their caregiving experiences. So participants have given us jewelry, photographs, painting, poetry, song. And I hope to have an exhibit and invite the policymakers as well as the research providers. I'm a strong believer in knowledge mobilization and translation. The way I use them is, for example, in my doctoral work, I converted participants' photographs into 21 art pieces, and I've had exhibits all across Canada. There was a huge demand that I couldn't keep up. It was very well received by the media, policymakers, stakeholders. So now I have a virtual exhibit that internationally anybody can actually access. I also look at knowledge mobilization from the context perspective, so targeting at specific audiences. So I created a calendar because nobody really wanted to read my 340-page thesis, and the calendar goes right on the employer's desk. In the future, I would really like to look at how arts, what is it that arts does for participants? How does it empower them or raise their critical consciousness? So I hope that in the future I will apply for funding and look at from the participants' eyes what arts does for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharati. Now, Hongmei, floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. My name is Hongmei Tong, and I'm associate professor at the School of Social Work, MacEwan University in Edmonton. I'm so glad to have this opportunity to share my research interest and have a discussion on how to engage older immigrants in our research and the practice. My scholarly goals are mainly to promote and facilitate like a healthy and active aging, and to create really inclusive and friendly communities for all the Canadian. Mainly, I have three like research programs. Yeah, first of all is how social determinants of health, particularly the factors like social isolation, social exclusion, could influence of health and well-being of older adults of life. In particular, I'm really interested in older immigrants with cultural background and different cultural backgrounds, and how other like a cultural and societal environmental factors twined together affect their mental health and well-being, and to improve their health and well-being of older adults. So I'm really interested in those culturally relevant programs and how they could promote the mental health of older adults. The second research interest I really want to explore in future is teaching and pedagogy, and how social gerontological social education could increase our social work students' interest in working with older adults, and particularly how those innovative technology could be integrated in our teaching and research, and to from our start from our social worker program education. Yeah, regarding today's panel discussion, I'm really interested to introduce one of the project I'm doing and the challenges I received regarding to engage older adults, particularly during the pandemic. Yeah, so the project I'm doing right now is regarding civic engagement of older adults, older immigrant adults in from age 5 ethnic groups, including Chinese, Indian, and Filipino. Yeah, so this 5 years project actually should be terminated next year, but due to the pandemic in the last 2 years, so the project is like a data collection. The original data collection plan have been paused. Yeah, so we try to switch to something different, but we are still planning how to revise the original data collection, like survey and interviews. Yeah, we scheduled, but we cannot do the in-person data collection for now. So I'm doing like ask for extension and hoping to revise the data collection for this year. But the engagement is a big issue for I'm experiencing. And for future research directions, actually, my background is quite like a quantitative based. Yeah, so for my doctoral research mainly focus on social exclusion and health using quantitative survey. But in the past 2 years, my interest really focused on mixed methodologies. Yeah, so like the project I'm sharing using the mixed methods, so the focus groups and quantitative survey, and also in-deep individual interview. Yes, and but recent years, like Bharati already mentioned, like art-based research method. Yes, I'm also really interested in using like a digital storytelling and photo voices. Yeah, so but I haven't had chance to use those methodology in really large project, but starting from like a smaller scale project in like a cost-based research. Yeah, so in the course I'm teaching like a gerontology, so I integrate the methodology and develop how to digital storytelling could be integrated in teaching, and to see how the older adults we interviewed using digital storytelling and how they perceive the benefits from digital storytelling. So I'm just like a pilot those projects to see how digital and the photo voice, those kind of research method could be developed. And I'm also really interested in community participatory research project. Yeah, so I'm trying to work with the researchers with this expertise to develop some research projects on this, to using them to develop some new projects. I don't know how my time is. Do I still have time?
I think it's good to you can wrap up.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that's me and what I'm doing and what I will do in future regarding research methodologies and the project. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Hongmei. Okay, now I will give the mic to Shirley.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm joining you today from the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Silks Okanagan Nation. My name is Shirley Chau. I'm Associate Professor at the School of Social Work at UBC Okanagan campus. And my current program of research is focused on understanding how critical life transitions influence the health and well-being of people such as immigrants, homeless people, survivors of intimate partner violence. And my lenses or my framework for my research are built on social determinants of health, critical theory, and critical race theory. And the idea that we could bring theory into practice and that, so I teach anti-racist practice in social work. And so I'm trying to, and my whole program of research has always been in that area of trying to bring critical theory to life so that we do anti-racist practice in social work and allied helping professions. And that we do this with a focus on the importance of relationality in conducting research. This last piece has been more of something that I've been thinking more about because research methods, the way it's taught to students, have often been seen as they're kind of departing from the idea that people have relationships. Indeed, we can't have trust with our participants, expect that they'll trust us without understanding the relationality of it or building it. And so I started really thinking more about that in recent years, probably in part because I moved from a big city and then started to do my research in a smaller city, which is where Kelowna is. And so I've got this experience of having done large studies, started out with quantitative research back in the late 1990s when I was a grad student working with some senior researchers on one of the first ethnic or ethno-racial a study on ethno-racial group, which was at that time Chinese seniors across Canada, which was the Chinese Health and Wellbeing Study, which some of you might know about. And at that time, we did a big quantitative study, and that was very important work that led to policy changes and this kind of thing. But eventually, I also expanded into looking at social capital, an idea that at the time was kind of weird for some people to think about. But as we see over time now, that it's actually very relevant. And so social capital was this idea of looking at who gets included and who gets excluded in social mobility circles, if you will, and applying that to how that affects older adults. And so these studies that I was involved in as co-investigator were funded by SSHRC, funded by CHR. And then within my own work, when I started my own as a professor over in UBC Okanagan, I started doing research differently because a smaller city setting required different types of thinking. And so I couldn't really focus on aging. So I started to do other things as well. So I started to look at how transitions such as becoming homeless for youth affects the way they cope and how they get access to healthcare systems. I also did research with survivors of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. Again, another major life transition, right? When they leave. And so altogether, a lot of the work that I've done has actually informed how I think about methods and others have already talked about mixed methods and using photo voice. And I've also been doing that as well. So it's really nice to know who else has been doing it here. And it is something that I think we're moving from these quantitative approaches that has its role, but also seeing that we need more fuller, fluid kind of relationality approaches, which is what, the previous speakers are also talking about, the need to understand the fuller context. And for me, it is about what does our research do to make us understand or allow us to understand about what makes people whole and what makes communities whole. And I think that's what we're going to try to do. And so my program of research tries to do that. And I'll elaborate more about that in terms of what does it mean for students moving forward who are being trained, and how do they have to set their eyes on different ways of thinking, because the way we're taught often, and I think it's being taught better now, as we become more knowledgeable about how things work and how societies work, that we need to look at how we think about things like how COVID has an impact on resetting the way we also look at how older adults are experiencing their lives after 2 years of forced isolation. So thanks. Looking forward to the panel.
Well, thank you all panelists to share your research interests and also your own research. In preparation for today's discussion, we asked our panelists to address a few questions. I'm going to ask the question one at a time and ask each panelist to respond within about 2 to 3 minutes to answer it. So first question we're going to discuss is, how do we engage with older adults, particularly older immigrants, in research or other settings? Do they vary based on geography, size, and nature of community and aging in place? So if you don't mind, I'm gonna go with the same order we had for the presentation. So which means I'm gonna give, I'm trying to say your name more correctly.
Marie-Emmanuelle.
Marie-Emmanuelle, yes, thank you. You can go ahead.
Merci. Puisque je m'intéresse à la relation qu'entretiennent les intervenants du réseau de la santé, des services sociaux et des réseaux communautaires avec les aînés migrants, vous imaginez que je me pose cette question régulièrement, puisque c'est notamment justement ces questions-là que je souhaite répondre dans mes recherches. Comment agir avec les aînés migrants pour encourager leur participation à des projets ou favoriser leur inclusion sociale? Est-ce qu'on doit adapter une attitude particulière lorsqu'on les approche ou lorsque l'on travaille avec des aînés migrants ou des aînés provenant des communautés culturelles? Je dirais que dans tous les cas, il est primordial d'établir un lien de confiance avec la personne. C'est à la base. C'est le facteur le plus important. Ce lien de confiance qui est basé sur le développement de la relation, un élément sur lequel je travaille, est primordial puisque ces aînés peuvent être méfiants en raison de la méconnaissance des ressources et des services, en raison de la méconnaissance du rôle et de l'objectif, par exemple, du chercheur. Est-ce que c'est un agent du gouvernement? Est-ce qu'il a des objectifs cachés? Ça m'est souvent arrivé et j'avais vraiment à éclaircir là, quel était mon rôle auprès de ces personnes. C'est la même chose avec les professionnels de la santé ou les travailleurs sociaux, puisque les aînés peuvent avoir l'impression d'être surveillés, ou peuvent avoir peur d'être volés, ou avoir peur qu'on cherche à les placer en maison de retraite. Bref, je crois qu'établir clairement notre rôle, expliquer les raisons de la rencontre, demander à la personne si elle a des questions, et lui laisser le temps de s'exprimer, prendre le temps aussi de parler d'autres choses que de la recherche et de l'intervention, sont des super bons moyens là, pour établir ce lien de confiance-là, créer la relation. Plusieurs aînés sont intéressés à participer à mes recherches parce qu'ils ont pour objectif d'améliorer les conditions des aînés migrants. Il n'est d'ailleurs pas rare que les aînés vont mentionner que leur historique migratoire et les difficultés qui sont reliées à la migration les liaient plus aux aînés qui avaient connu cette situation qu'une même appartenance ethnoculturelle. Je trouve que c'est un point qui est très intéressant. La communication avec un membre de la famille, une fils, un fils, une belle-fille, peut souvent aussi favoriser l'ouverture de l'aîné. Il faut cependant demeurer prudent sur cet aspect. Tout dépend de la raison de la rencontre ou de la relation qui est entretenue avec les enfants, les beaux-enfants. Il m'est arrivé pour d'autres recherches de faire appel aux leaders de la communauté, par exemple des leaders religieux ou des personnes clés qui ont créé un lien de confiance avec les aînés. Dans une recherche, par exemple, c'est la pharmacienne du quartier qui nous a aidés là, à recruter des participants à une recherche sur l'activité physique des migrants. Il faut savoir une chose, d'après mon expérience, le lieu de vie de la personne va demeurer le meilleur lieu pour établir un lien de confiance avec elle et procéder à une enquête, un entretien de recherche, voire même une intervention, qu'elle soit sociale ou psychosociale. Ça nous donne accès aux objets, ça nous donne accès aux photos. Donc, là encore, j'en reviens, ça nous permet de discuter avec la personne de qui elle est, et non pas seulement de notre objectif scientifique ou médical ou social, ou si on a un travailleur social. Je suis en train de dépasser mon temps. Hein? Juste terminer en vous disant que je travaille actuellement à l'élaboration d'un guide d'activité qui est destiné aux intervenants des milieux ou aux bénévoles qui souhaitent entrer en contact avec des migrants isolés, des migrants aînés isolés, dans le but de les amener, s'ils le souhaitent, à participer à des activités en centre communautaire. La façon dont on a bâti le guide, c'est que les activités proposées vont débuter par des séances individuelles qui se feraient au domicile de la personne afin de créer un lien de confiance et d'encourager la personne à sortir de son isolement si elle le souhaite et à l'inviter à participer à des activités de groupe dans des centres communautaires. Donc, j'espère que ces travaux-là pourront servir au projet actuel. Merci.
Thank you, Marie-Emmanuelle. Bharati, do you want to go next?
Sure. So the question that how do we engage with older adults, older immigrants, and if geography, size of the community matters. So engagement is really a hot topic, but what is engagement? What do we mean by engagement? In simple terms, it's involving the people for whom actually the benefit of the research matters most, here older immigrants. So as I talked earlier that I use participatory approaches, that's how I engage with older adults or other populations. Specifically what I do in our community-based participatory research is because I really believe that if you're going to engage with older adults or other populations, and you want to make it where the size of the community matters, and you want your research to be very contextual, you have to involve the stakeholders. So I involve the service providers, policymakers, and the way I do that is that they are my research advisory committee members. So they are advisory to the research project throughout the research process, even before we even apply. At the time that I apply for funding, I have the research advisory committee, and they basically consist of whether it's older adults or whoever in the local community is, say, faith leaders or others who are knowledge users or knowledge providers of that research. In recent years, participatory approaches such as community-based participatory research is really gaining a lot of attention among funders, healthcare providers, as well as policymakers. And I think the reason it's so important to use that approach for engagement is that it addresses healthcare disparities, fosters stakeholder relationships, as well as it addresses the myriad of equity and social justice issues. So it specifically taps into local knowledge and expertise. And so there's this sense of we-ness that is really required for meaningful engagement. So in the last part of the question of geography, it's a great question because it's often been neglected as a social determinants of health. As I mentioned that my research is in rural and small communities, I have found that as a researcher and as a chair of the research advisory committee, I have to wear many hats: planner, facilitator, listener, observer, motivator, synthesizer. And such collaboration is quite complex. It has to be very dynamic as people come from diverse backgrounds, and they may hold conflicting values. When they're challenged, it can threaten their status quo and practitioners and their previous way of doing things. So how do I deal with that? I use a cyclical research process, and to make sure that every person in the research advisory committee, their contribution is significant. So we start with planning what we're going to do, then we act upon it, then we observe and reflect. Then we come back, plan, act, observe, and reflect. And in my experience, that has really worked in engaging populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharati. Hongmei, who's gonna go next?
Thank you. Regarding this question, as I mentioned, engagement of all the immigrants are really important in my own research project, and the challenges I already mentioned as well. And the strategies have been using, or I'm trying to using, including how to develop a really close relationship with local immigrant services agencies through other research projects or other opportunities, including including student practicum, because I have students, so I use placed to those student agencies. So in the past few years, we developed a really good relationship and a trust between us, and they will really supportive in the research project. Yeah, so how to find and recruit eligible seniors, older immigrants we are looking for. I think really helpful for me. And another strategy I'm using is to hire cultural brokers from the communities and particularly my own backgrounds, like from Chinese communities. I'm really know them and really close relationship with them. But the research projects involving other languages, including like a Punjabi and Tagalog, like Filipinos. So I'm not familiar with those communities. So I really rely on the cultural brokers from those communities, and they could help me to find recruit the participants I need. And also I hire some like a research assistants from those communities, so they have really strong community connections. Yeah, so they can help in promoting the research project, and also to hire the participants, and also they can help with the research because they're really interested in helping in research and being a research assistant. Yeah. Currently, I'm also using particularly like Chinese communities. We have the information like a social media platform is very different, like a WeChat. So there's a lot of senior in like a groups and through provided through WeChat. Yeah, so I'm provide like a volunteering workshops for those and have a good connections with some senior like leaders. Yeah, so really helpful for me if I have some research project, and we try to find out who will be interested in those projects. Yeah, so those like senior leaders and the WeChat, the really, I think it's a really new platform. Yeah. But the weakness of my own background, I don't know much about the other social media platforms that are available to other ethnic groups. Yeah, so still need the other strategies. And yeah, I think it's really important, but still have challenges how to engage, particularly due to the language barriers and the cultural barriers, how to understand the communities and in research methodology, like a sampling method, from my own experiences, I really like a snow ball rolling in those kind of sampling method, so the connections could be extended, and could find engage other research participants. Those participants already know. Yeah, so I think it's very helpful as well. Yeah, I think that is what I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Hongmei. Shirley, would you mind to share yours too?
Yeah, so, you know, in terms of engagement, I've been fortunate to hang out with a lot of older adults in my own life. So I get to hear and watch how older adults engage with each other. and what they think about research and what they think about news and these kind of things. So what I've noticed is that in larger cities, because like in Vancouver, there are many more resources available for different ethno-racial groups. So oftentimes research is, you can engage in research with different communities through those kind of avenues. In smaller city settings like Kelowna, where we don't have a Chinatown, we don't have really anything, and it's actually an assimilationist model, right, in these smaller cities. And I think my colleagues who spoke before me can attest to this too. So that makes a particular challenge, because in both cases, in terms of engagement, you have the issue of suspicion of being scammed, right? For particularly older adults who are concerned about their safety and they don't know who you, and research is not a common word. Research is common to us, but not to other people. So our engagement has to translate in the ways that, like, I really liked what Bharati was saying about, you know, using an advisory group and this kind of thing. And there are always, you know, trickiness to it all, because in smaller communities where word of mouth goes by fast, it can help facilitate engagement, or it may not. And so when there are political issues that are going on in the world, they kind of like seep into things that happen, you know, in Canada. And so I found that engagement, we really need to sit more with people in their everyday life to understand. And so what I would call participant observation, if you will, and to understand how they actually see, because we can't assume that just because they're Chinese, that they all speak the same language, it all came for the same idea, you know, why they came to Canada. And so there are political, social, cultural, and personal reasons. And all of those things need to be negotiated in order for have a successful kind of smooth project. So for me, that's one. More specific around engagement, though, the other thing I think we need to think about place and geography is also around how do we understand isolation? It's often assumed in bigger cities that because we have more resources that older adults are less likely to be isolated. And actually, I would argue that actually, no, they get quite isolated as well, but in different ways. And that in smaller cities, you can expect that most won't, but they will tend to go to places like churches. If they go to churches, they go to common areas. So the Korean community here is sufficiently big enough that they could have 3 churches that they go to. And I know that now, right? But I didn't know that before, but it took a while for them to kind of form. So those kind of things are important to know. So knowing the life of the older adults and how that's different from the younger adults is important. And the final thing I would say is, and we don't see much of this in the literature, is thinking about hearing impairment. Much of our research activities require people engage verbally and hearing and all. And hearing impairment is a big one that people don't talk about. And oftentimes we lose our participants because we go and running focus groups and what have you, and we don't really realize people have hearing impairments. Even when they tell us, we don't actually accommodate the way we do the activities or the way we talk, how we talk to accommodate their ability to engage. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Shirley. I noticed a question came in the chat box. We're gonna make sure that all the questions will be addressed at the end of the panel discussion. So yeah, just wait a little bit for that. Now we're gonna move on to the next discussion question. I'm gonna read the question first, which is, what method would you suggest researchers use that are culturally and age appropriate? How do we consider the intersectionality of culture, ethnicity, gender, and of course, age in engaging with older adults? So I'm gonna go again with Marie-Emmanuelle. You are on mute, Marie-Emmanuelle. Thank you.
Sorry. J'ai mentionné tantôt qu'au Québec, nous avions une approche différente concernant la migration et la diversité. Bien qu'il existe certains organismes qui s'adressent à des communautés culturelles spécifiques, la grande majorité des organismes communautaires au Québec sont ouverts aux aînés de toutes les origines. Plusieurs recherches qualitatives québécoises vont aussi dans ce sens. C'est pourquoi on va avoir tendance à inclure des aînés migrants de toutes les origines avec des parcours très différents. C'est une vision différente de celle qui privilégie l'étude d'aînés faisant partie des communautés spécifiques. Mais je pense toutefois que ces deux approches, la multiculturaliste et l'interculturelle, sont valables et que l'on peut bénéficier des résultats qui émergent de ces deux types de recherches. Parce que selon moi, chaque approche va posséder ses forces et ses faiblesses et je crois sincèrement qu'elles peuvent être complémentaires et s'enrichir mutuellement. L'approche interculturelle, par exemple, reconnaît que les expériences de la vieillesse, la signification de la vieillesse, la façon de vivre le vieillissement et le statut des personnes âgées vont varier d'une culture à l'autre, mais elle va surtout privilégier la rencontre, le dialogue, l'échange pour avoir accès aux représentations et au vécu unique de chaque aîné migrant, tout en réussissant à établir des ponts entre les cultures. Plutôt que de s'intéresser à des communautés spécifiques dans le but de dresser un portrait global, l'approche interculturelle va privilégier les concepts d'unicité, en reconnaissant que nous sommes tous uniques, les concepts de diversité, en reconnaissant que nous sommes tous différents, et le concept d'universalité des conditions, qui, par exemple, démontre que nous sommes tous unis dans certaines conditions, comme le vieillissement notamment. L'approche multiculturelle a pour force de considérer que les aînés des communautés ethnoculturelles ne sont pas uniquement liés à leur culture traditionnelle du pays d'origine, mais aussi à la position sociale actuelle et historique de la communauté. L'approche interculturelle vient bonifier les résultats en reconnaissant que les communautés culturelles ne constituent pas toujours des groupes statiques et qu'elles varient en fonction des communautés et des individus, ce qui évite la catégorisation et permet de reconnaître les particularités individuelles. Bref, je demeure convaincue qu'il est pertinent de dresser le portrait global des conditions qui influencent l'inclusion sociale des aînés dans des communautés culturelles spécifiques, tout en reconnaissant l'importance de considérer les particularités individuelles des conditions à l'intérieur des communautés mêmes. Un devis de recherche mixte qui allierait des outils de recherche quantitatifs et des outils de recherche qualitatifs est pour moi un moyen d'allier les deux approches et d'obtenir des résultats plus complets. Merci.
Thank you, Marie-Emmanuelle. Bharati, would you go next?
Thank you. So as I identified earlier, some of the benefits of participatory research or engagement with older adults as well as other populations, especially in smaller towns and rural communities. So I'm going to elaborate specifically on whatever method you use, what are the key components that are really important. So one is that attention has to be paid to meaningful engagement and authentic engagement with the community where the research is being done. What does that mean? It really means that you have to have the communication is the key with the research advisory committee members, as well as older adults that you are engaging as partners in the research. It has to be context specific. In smaller towns, the culture of the communities, as Shirley may also know, is quite different than larger metropolitan areas. I don't know if you're aware of something, and I can send it later, link if somebody's interested. There's an International Association for Public Participation. It's become a really preeminent international organization, and their goal is to advance public participation. But the principles with which they're based are really very effective in engaging any populations. So with older adults or other vulnerable populations that have dealt with people with disabilities, I always involve the caregiver. It's really important. And as Shirley had mentioned about hearing impairment, that if you're really using that, basically saying that we are having them as partners of the research process, then we need to communicate regularly with them, as well as with the caregiving partners. And then you basically tailor their engagement based on their individual needs and preferences, because older adults' needs may be quite different than engaging with youth. What I do is that no matter what project I start with, I invest the first 6 months at least. I don't even hire an RA in understanding the stories of the community that I'm working with. In every single project, I first develop the relationship with them. So when we start the research process, we have to ensure that the partners understand what is it that we are asking of them. It seems simple, but many times this expectation, this clarity should be revisited often. Another way to engage them, or whatever method you use, is determining the time, location. It's not based on our convenience, but based on the participants. For older adults, they may have transportation difficulties. Continually evaluating the level of engagement. And I talked earlier about how I do that is plan, act, observe, reflect. I do that throughout the process to actually basically remind ourselves if what we have said in terms of meaningful engagement, are we actually following through that? And then intentionally incorporating that feedback. And then help them understand that their role and experience can inform research. And then make sure that the research advisory committee members do not feel inhibited. So just to touch a little bit on intersectionality, I am an intersectional scholar, and intersectionality is very well developed as a theoretical framework, but not in practice. So I use intersectionality for my doctoral work, and also evaluated some intersectionality research methods for students. And if we are going to use intersectionality and make sure that there is the intersections of race, class, gender, whatever, we have to start that and basically integrate that before we even do our questions. Because if you don't ask intersectional type questions, you're not going to get intersectionality type responses. So really beginning right from the beginning when we're developing the protocol for interviews, focus groups, that we integrate intersectionality, and then we do that throughout our process. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharati. Hongmei?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. For myself, I think I really like the intersectionality lens. I think it's really, this lens is really important for any research project related to older immigrants, because there are any issues and health actually affected by lots of factors. So intersectionality lens is a really helpful and wider framework for my own perspective, for my own research. For example, the research project I'm currently doing, already mentioned, is the civic engagement of Asian immigrants. So the older adults from different ethnic groups and how they civic participated actually affected by many factors, individual factors like age, gender, and there is culture and the political, even broader like system. Yeah, so I think how this so I think in one of the strategy in the when I'm designing this project is how to find as much as like a diverse participants in this project. So, and we can using this and how those factors twinkle together to influence the older adults and their participations in the civic activities, the participations in civic activities. Yeah, so when, but after I also realized rather than the intersectionality lens, but we also needed to consider other broader like a contextual factors like societal or political and even environmental factors. Yeah, so I like this intersectional intersectionality lens, but I think it we still need to maybe to consider other like broader social environmental factors, particularly based on the specific research topic like social isolation, like Shirley mentioned, or isolation and participations. Those factors actually even more than Yeah, so that's my experience perspective. I like intersectionality and really important, but I'm also thinking about like other more contextual factors in research.
Thank you for sharing, Hongmei. Shirley, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I agree, absolutely. Participatory approaches to engaging is key, it's central. And intersectionality is also central to the work we do, that we have to do. I think in translating that though into actual doing is the challenge that we come into. For instance, I think when it comes to intersectionality alone, I think with what Hongmei is saying is true as well, that there are factors that are push-pull factors for how older adults as research participants are able to express themselves. So for instance, in a larger city, where like in Vancouver, Toronto, where there are more services available, there's more safety, I think, right? In that sense, where people have more safety to, our older adults will have more safety to express themselves more, to engage more so. But in small settings like cities like I'm in, a little city, there is less so. And I find that what I've observed is the assimilation, the pressure to assimilate, because the way the built environment is, the way the structure of the city is, it prevents people from actually engaging. So it's very hard to even recruit participants sometimes. And while caregivers should be brought in, I agree, absolutely. Again, though, like anything else, it's context bound. And so depending on, like, if you want to understand isolation and elder abuse, right? How do you do that in the context of older adults who are living within the context of a small city, within the context of whatever. And so those are challenges that we have to think through, and how do we do that? Because there's so much safety that we have to think about because of a smaller setting and because it's word of mouth. And we don't know what people say to each other outside of the research. And so that's a challenge for us, I think, to think about. And then the whole functioning piece, the health functioning piece too, and mental health. How do we support people when we're engaging in these deeper dive topics that are not always pleasant? Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Now we're going to move on to the next and then last question, asking for your own insight, which is, based on your own research experience and community engagement, what would be your suggestion to ICOI in developing capacity and knowledge sharing between and among researchers, universities, community, and policymakers to yield publicly engaging scholarship? And what are the pitfalls that ICOI need to be aware of? So if we can go again at the same order, Marie-Emmanuelle.
Je vois le temps qui court, alors je serai brève. En tant que chercheur, je pense qu'il est important de ne pas faire preuve de rigidité dans notre vision de la gestion de la diversité, mais de demeurer ouvert justement aux différentes postures, qu'elles soient interculturelles, multiculturelles, intersectionnelles. Toutes les interventions qui viennent d'avoir lieu démontrent justement, selon moi, la pertinence d'adopter un regard diversifié par rapport à la diversité et aux conditions à l'inclusion des aînés. Je pense que c'est important de reconnaître qu'il y a différentes façons de faire en fonction des provinces, des contextes, des approches. Il y a des provinces où, si on regarde par exemple aux États-Unis, il y a un agglomérat de communautés culturelles où je calcule que ça vaut vraiment la peine qu'on se penche sur les spécificités culturelles de ces communautés-là. Mais si on regarde à Montréal, quand les intervenants ont à travailler avec 150 groupes ethnoculturels différents, c'est très difficile pour eux d'être en mesure de pouvoir là, établir des catégories qui leur permettent là, de dire comment se comporte chacune comment se comporte chacune des communautés. Donc, être ouvert à des nouveaux points de vue, des nouvelles façons de faire qui nous sortent de notre zone de confort. On voit beaucoup de résistance en recherche et j'inclus le globe. Ne pas juste enfermer les gens dans des catégories prédéterminées, tenir compte des particularités individuelles, pour moi, c'est très important. Inclure dans nos recherches des données qui sont à la fois de nature quantitative, mais aussi des données de recherche qualitative qui vont nous permettre d'avoir accès à la dimension unique des situations et de faire ressortir les particularités et les différences pour avoir une approche plus nuancée. Ça nous amène à prendre la diversité, en considération la diversité des conditions des aînés, la diversité des profils, et ça à l'intérieur d'une même communauté. Considérer les intervenants et les aînés comme des experts. Hein. Très souvent, on ne donne pas assez la parole aux personnes, aux sujets que l'on souhaite étudier, aux groupes que l'on souhaite étudier. Donc, je crois que les aînés ont leur place dans les recherches et que c'est vraiment important d'aller chercher leur point de vue comme ceux des intervenants, des professionnels de la santé. Les chercheurs, nous ne sommes pas les seuls experts, mais moi, je préfère me voir comme une traductrice des savoirs des gens avec qui je travaille. Si on donne des formations, je crois qu'il est important de former tous les acteurs qui sont impliqués dans l'inclusion sociale des aînés migrants, soit les décideurs, les gestionnaires, les formateurs, les futurs professionnels, les intervenants, mais aussi les aînés, afin de leur permettre à leur tour de réfléchir sur la question de la diversité et du vivre ensemble pour en arriver à des sociétés qui sont plus ouvertes et plus inclusives. Merci.
Okay, thank you, Marie-Emmanuelle. I just want to ask, because like everybody knows the time is ticking, if you can make your answer a little bit concise, that will be great, so we can have enough time for Q&A later. Okay, so Bharati, can you go?
Sure, I'll be very brief. First of all, I would really, I talked about that new tool that the public participation campaign is using. It's becoming an international standard. I would really encourage people to look at that because it provides a whole knowledge mobilization in terms of informing, consulting, involving, collaborating, and then empowering. And it's the tool is being developed through international collaboration. In my own research, as I talked earlier of participatory and arts-based, whatever approach we use, we have to work with the stakeholders to make it context-specific, as well as make sure that the capacity building or knowledge mobilization is user-friendly. So many of the things that I do, the first thing that I always do in my community is a research launch. So in the research launch, I invite all of the stakeholders, others, where I provide the results of the research. Again, in my research advisory committee, work with the stakeholders. How are we going to distribute the material? Who are the knowledge users? Who are the knowledge providers? So basically using multimodal tools, outreach materials. So developing educational and outreach materials, maybe having a stakeholder training, having public campaigns. Even small, I basically go to certain agencies and do a presentation on the research. Just making sure that across all groups that we are dealing with, that the type of translation we are doing or capacity building, that the skills and knowledge is relative, not just to the stakeholders, but also to the older population who have been engaged in the research. Short enough?
Thank you, Bharati. Yes. Hongmei?
Thank you. I think the last question really hard to answer. So because I'm really still new, like a researcher, so I'm still learning how to consider capacity, like developing capacity. I think this project is already doing very well. So I take this as opportunity to learn and also like learn from other researchers in this project and to hear how other researchers doing to developing and how they are doing like a knowledge sharing activities. Yeah, so I don't think I can provide the insightful inputs to these questions. Yeah, I'm learning. Thank you.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you, Hongmei. Shirley?
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to add. I think the previous speakers have all pretty well covered it. I think, you know, ICOI itself is doing what it's asking us to address. It's actually doing it right now, what we're doing now, sitting here, talking with, you know, researchers and future generation of researchers, and to bring awareness to the development. I think we all bring different stories of development, our own trajectories, our own development, and how it could go in different ways, but still trying to meet the objective of addressing serious gaps in our knowledge base for practice in Canadian society and elsewhere. And so I don't know what else we could do more, but just keep doing and evaluating how well we're doing, I think, is the other piece.
Thank you, Shirley, and thank you to all our panelists for your presentation and an insightful answer. So now we're gonna open the floor to starting the question and answer session. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question or write in the chat box. I remember there is one question came earlier, even though I don't understand French, but I can see it goes to Marie-Emmanuelle. If you can start while we are waiting for more questions coming, you can answer this question. And if you don't mind, would you read the question so it can be translated in English too?
Avec plaisir. Alors, on a demandé comment la barrière linguistique a-t-elle influencé la trajectoire migratoire des personnes âgées, leur perspective d'immigration à un âge avancé, et quelles sont les stratégies d'inclusion pour y remédier? Eh bien, tout d'abord, je vais tenter de faire rapide parce que la question est complexe, mais il faut tout d'abord savoir que la barrière linguistique va rendre beaucoup plus difficile le parcours migratoire et l'inclusion dans la société. Mais tout va dépendre, ça va encore dépendre de différents facteurs qui sont en lien avec l'histoire individuelle. Quel âge a-t-on lors de la migration? Quelle langue parle-t-on? Quels sont nos objectifs migratoires? Est-ce qu'on arrive dans une communauté, dans un lieu, par exemple, une ville où il y a des membres de notre communauté qui ne demeurent pas loin? Ou va-t-on vivre chez nos enfants qui ne sont pas nécessairement en lien avec la communauté ethnoculturelle qui nous définit? Alors, ce sont tous ces éléments-là qui vont venir jouer. Ce que je peux dire, c'est que plus on va avoir tendance, quand j'étudie les trajectoires migratoires, je fais une grosse différence aussi entre les aînés qui sont arrivés récemment ou les aînés qui sont ici depuis 20, 30, 40 ans. Parce que plus on est ici depuis longtemps, si on a eu des enfants, ben on aura appris la langue avec eux souvent à l'école, avec des parents à l'école. On aura eu accès à des classes de francisation ou du moins on aura appris l'anglais. Donc, c'est en général plus facile pour les hommes parce qu'ils sont insérés dans le milieu du travail. Donc, le réseau se crée plus facilement. Mais la tendance change aussi au niveau des trajectoires migratoires parce que maintenant, dans les couples, depuis une quinzaine, vingtaine d'années, l'homme et la femme travaillent. Donc, dans un certain sens, si on arrive plus jeune, c'est plus simple. Lorsqu'on arrive âgé, ben là, ça va dépendre de notre statut migratoire et encore de plein d'autres facteurs. Mais si c'est du parrainage, ben, ce qu'on retrouve dans nos recherches, c'est qu'au niveau de la trajectoire migratoire, les aînés qui sont venus rejoindre des enfants parce que bon, le système de santé était meilleur au Québec ou que le réseau de la personne âgée diminuait énormément dans le pays d'accueil, donc les enfants souhaitaient faire venir leur mère ou leur père, c'est beaucoup plus difficile pour eux. On abandonne notre lieu, on vient rejoindre nos enfants, on est content, mais en même temps, si on n'est pas nécessairement en lien avec des membres de la communauté ethnoculturelle, ben, la barrière linguistique, qu'on ne parle ni anglais ni français, ben, c'est sûr que la barrière linguistique va favoriser l'isolement de ces personnes-là. Qu'est-ce que je pourrais dire aussi? Quelles sont les stratégies d'inclusion pour y remédier? Ben, au Québec, on réfléchit beaucoup à la question, mais on travaille beaucoup sur la diversification l'identification des origines ethnoculturelles des intervenants en santé, en travail social, dans les milieux communautaires pour que justement, il y ait des personnes qui soient en mesure d'aider l'intégration des personnes qui sont unilingues. On va faire appel à beaucoup de bénévoles. Ça fonctionne très bien ici au Québec dans les centres communautaires. On va travailler avec des voisins, des membres de la famille qui souvent vont accompagner les aînés, que ce soit en service de santé, service social ou même dans les milieux communautaires. Donc, ça peut être des points qui peuvent favoriser l'inclusion des aînés, mais la barrière linguistique demeure toutefois la plus grande barrière pour l'inclusion sociale des aînés, c'est certain. Merci.
Thank you. Is anybody who want to ask a question using your camera and then microphone, feel free to do it. We still have probably 1 more 2 minutes. Okay. Any comment probably than each other from panelists?
I can ask a question as a new scholar and a student. In terms of method, what do you think about mixing different methods, using multiple methods? In particular, l'écological system, le système écologique, ou en partenariat avec d'autres méthodes, or in addition to other ones like the ones you mentioned, intersectionality or other ones? Or do you prefer to stick to just one method in your research? What kind of advice can you give the new generation? Thank you.
Are you addressing the question to the specific panelists or just for open for in general?
But, I'm sorry, it's open actually. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, anybody who wanna jump in to address this question?
I think Bharati.
I can just do briefly. I don't do ecological research, but that's a really good question. And always when the students ask me when I teach research methods, it depends on what is it you want, right? So, and what kind of mixed methods? Is your qualitative going to inform your quantitative, or is your quantitative going to inform the qualitative? So if I don't know something about a topic and it's very exploratory, I have no idea, I may do a needs assessment, do a quantitative, as I did on in my MSW, I did a full quantitative research. From that, I developed the questions and built on my PhD, which was completely qualitative. So mixed methods is really appropriate for certain things, and quantitative is and we know the pitfalls of quantitative, and we also know the pitfalls of qualitative. You cannot generalize qualitative to a population, but that's not your goal. So when I'm using a lot of storytelling, or my goal is not to generalize, it's something that I have no idea about what is happening there, and I may use that to develop a quantitative survey. So it really depends what your question is. And that's why I said earlier, start backwards. What is it you want to do? It's not that mixed method is better than qualitative or quantitative. What is it you want? Do you want your quantitative to inform your qualitative, or what is the question you're trying to answer? I hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I would add to that, and it's a perfect answer. And I would add to that, oftentimes students, they feel under pressure, right, to get something done, to write their proposal. So they think, quantitative is the way to go if their school supports that. Most of the professors do that, or whatever it might be. But it always comes down to what is your research question, because the question drives the design. It's not the design that drives the question. And so when your question is about what is the experience of, let's say, what is the experience of refugees who are coming, who came from Afghanistan during the COVID period. If you want to know what that experience is like, right, in that layered context of complexity, a quantitative, approach is not going to do it, right? Because you want to get the experience. So how, what, those things kind of really lend itself to the really rich stories, right? And so you want to be going that way. But if you want to know how many were affected, by whatever, then yeah, a basic descriptive study, right? Using a survey or whatever. And then you may want to get, if you want to use a mixed method, because that should really only be used if it really is going to supplement your information and give you more a well-rounded picture. And it's really labor intensive. That's the other thing. It may sound easy, but it's labor intensive. So if you don't do that well, then your study kind of goes sideways. So that's something I would add, because for students, we often they think it might be easy to do, but once you're in it, it is heavy slogging to get through. Not to damper your spirits on that.
I just wanted to quickly add something also to keep in consideration in terms of time intensive, the front load or back load. So when you're doing quantitative, you may spend a lot of time developing the survey. For qualitative, you may just have open-ended questions, so the front load is not very heavy. But qualitative, your data analysis, even if it's a small population, is going to take a long time. So I had 425 photographs as well as 21 transcripts that were 1.5 hour long. So that was later on I needed. So you look at your time and say, do I have time in the beginning or do I have time later? Because it's a front load or back load. Because in quantitative, it may be, you spend time developing the surveys, but in qualitative, you spend a lot of time in analysis.
Is there anybody who wanna add further? I think time's up already. So I'd like to say a big thank you to all the panelists for their contribution to the discussion on research practice and engagement strategies involving older immigrants. And thank you everyone for joining us. The discussion we have today will be made available on ICOI website in the coming weeks, and please look out for our upcoming sessions. Thank you very much and take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.